kind of regressing in our minds about what we were like in high school. Today we're going to talk a little bit about choosing a major. Now, I didn't want to really call it choosing a major because everybody thinks that way, and what it really needs to be is something more along the lines of choosing your passion. So we're going to use that as the lens as we have our conversation today. So my name's Patrick Matson. When I got here, it was really strange because people kept calling me Dr. Matson, and I don't really go by that, so just call me Patrick. It was really freaky because it's like, you know, I've gone through a doctoral program, but it's still weird to me from people call me Dr. Matson. So I usually reserve that for students at my college that I work for that do terrible things. When all of a sudden they can't call me Patrick anymore, they have to call me Dr. Matson because I have to pull that out. I'm from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and I'm very glad to be here to talk about these ideas, these passion ideas, because when you're getting into college and you're going to college, you're going to feel this pressure. This presentation is about understanding what that pressure is. And I'm going to give you kind of the realistic look of how you deal with those types of questions, what you really need to think about, and honestly, things that you really don't need to think about during your freshman year. So I'm going to make a very realistic type of idea when we talk about these things. So let's try this. Since you guys are kind of quiet right now, I'm going to give you the magic bullet of how you can actually choose your major. Would you guys like that? This is really going to get you going, so stand up. Aha. If you're quiet, I'm going to make you stand up. There we go. All right, so this is what I make every single student who comes to UNCG do when they first arrive during their orientation, because this magically helps them choose their major really quick. So parents, when they're choosing their major quick, usually that means we can get them out of college within 3 to 4 years, which is good. Why? Yeah, it costs less. So that's the first realism in there. So if you put your right hand out real quick, just like this, palms down. This is magic, so stay with me. Put your left hand out, palm down. Put your right hand up now, palm up. Left hand up. Put your right hand on your hip. Your left hand on your hip. And swing your hips. Okay, sit down. I just wanted to see if I can get you guys to the back.
She knows what her major is now.
You know what your major is now? We have a dance major at UNCG. Your mom's really calling you out. Really going to get you. All right, so when I called my friend Jessica, and I told her I was doing this kind of presentation, I asked her, okay, what was the most scary thing for you? What was the most scary thing for you when you're actually going out there saying, you know, I'm going to college, I'm thinking about my career, I'm thinking about what's next for me, I'm spending all this kind of money. What scared you? And she said the scariest thing for me was when people started coming up to me and saying, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? And she had no clue what that meant. She couldn't figure out what did she want to do. She didn't understand how to actually say, this is who I am.
Time session 1 begins.
All right. This is what it is that I'm trying to do with my life. And instead, all she could do is say, these are the different types or the parts of who I am. She said, you know what, I'm a world traveler. I'm somebody who likes to travel. I like different cultures. Does that equal a career? Yes or no? I don't know. We don't know. She says, you know what, I like to spend my time reading. I like to spend my time writing. I like journaling. I like telling people through the written language who I am and what I'm all about. She likes to actually sleep, she said. I said, okay, fine. Is that a career? It could be. It could be a career. She says that she loves talking with people. She loves presenting. She loves going out there and actually taking these different ideas and showing people this is what makes who she is. And so when she started thinking about all these different aspects of her life, she was able to take those aspects, those things that she really likes, and group them and use that to actually find what it is that she's going to major in, what it is that she's actually going to do for her job, and what she's actually going to do in her career. So when we start to think about what you're passionate about, what your purpose is, what you find meaning in, those are going to be the trigger points to help you understand what am I going to do in college and then what am I going to do after college. So today what we're going to talk about is the process that you can start thinking through to help you to get to that point where you feel comfortable with what it is that you're studying, what you're doing in college, and actually getting out there. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you can actually make decisions. How many of you feel comfortable in the decision-making process that you have? You know how to make a really good decision. How do you guys normally make decisions? My students. How do you make decisions? Hello? I just made you do the Macarena. Come on, I know no more dance moves. How do you make a decision, sir? Exactly. It's really frustrating how to make a decision. How do you make a decision? You don't know either. How do you make a decision? This is the spit zone, just so you guys know, because I can go close to you. So sometimes we don't even know how do we make decisions. This is going to be an important concept that you need to understand when you get into college, because when you're getting all this new information, all these new experiences, all these new things that college is going to provide to you, you got to put them into some kind of semblance of order. And if you don't, what I usually find is students are there for 6 and 7 years. In college for 6 and 7 years. I can guarantee you, about 87% of students, once they hit the second semester of their junior year, they're tired of college already. They're saying, you know what, this was a fine experience, now I just want to get out of here so I can go on to the next step. So at some point, you got to take all that stuff that you're seeing and learning and actually make a decision out of it so that you feel comfortable with what that next step is. And then I'm going to talk to you about some of the tools that typical college campuses have. This high school probably has as well, that'll help you through this entire thing. So, really quick quiz. Can you guess my major? So who's that young lady on the left-hand side? So what do you think that she majored in college? How many of you say mass communication, A? Raise your hand. Mass communication, all right? How many of you say B, public health? All right, and how many of you say C, theater? All right? Actually, mass communication. What does she do now?
She's a singer.
She's a singer. Is she a pretty good singer? Yeah. She actually acts now too. How about this guy in the middle? How do we know who he is? What does he do? He's a basketball dude, right? Where did he go for college? Yeah, very bad place, UNCG. Or, I'm sorry, Chapel Hill. So what do you think he majored in? A, math? How many of you say math? How many of you say B, sports management? All right, thank you, sir. How many of you say C, business? Ooh, you guys are fancy. Nope, math. Majored in math. Amazing, huh? What about this dude right here, Ray Romano? How many of you say he majored in accounting? Okay, all right, fine. B, psychology? All right, fine, good. C, finance. Accounting. And what does he do these days? He just acts. That's all he does. Right? So what this is getting at is when you're actually thinking about what a major is, most people think that it equals some kind of career. That if I major in X, I must only be able to do Y. If I am going to be a psychology major, what must I be when I grow up? Psychologist. If I am going to be a business major, what must I be? A business person. And that's a very vague way of thinking about it. So when you're actually looking at college, only about a very, very small amount of people actually stick with their major. And so when you're going in there, most people go in there undecided. And that's okay. There's a stigma about when you go into college, if I'm an undecided, something's wrong with me. It's okay. Because a lot of times with college, your first year is just about understanding, getting a sense of what the world is like, collecting all these experiences. You have time. And so when you get to college, if you start to hear academic advisors or your faculty trying to push you to choose that major, it's okay if you want to hold off for a little while. And that's what a career center is all about, is we help you say, look, the first year, a lot of it's going to be built around what we call general credits. There are things that you just have to take in college, and that's what your freshman year is all about. It's a transition from the days in high school where you're here every single day for how many hours? 6 to 7 hours, and you have 7 classes every single day. College changes the whole game again, and you have to get used to what that's all about. And you have time to take some of those general classes because those are the things that you're actually just trying out new types of careers. So your job is to get informed. Your job is to take some of those different types of intro classes. Your job is to join in to some clubs and organizations. Your job, if I can say, is to go into your career center in your first year, not your last year when you're looking for a job, because you want to start this whole entire process. Because it does take a while. I would say that, and I've been doing this for more than 13 years at 4 different universities, career counseling type of stuff. I have never seen a student, I'm trying to think through it, never seen a student actually walk into my office and a day later magically know what they want to do when they grow up. If they do, they're lying to me because they usually change it up. So it takes time. And so when it's actually taking time, you have to make sure that you're paying attention to how much time it might take. How much time do you ask? It could be months. It could be a couple years. I have people that I still talk to that, they have a semblance of who they are, but they still haven't connected it out there. it's going to take time. And so when you're actually starting to think through what it doesn't mean that's what you're picking for your career. All you're doing is picking some things that you love to study. So if you love to study something, what are your grades most likely going to look like? Pretty good, right? I would assume they're pretty good. If you enjoy studying something, how do you feel in that class? Do you feel bored? Not necessarily. Does it go by really fast? Yes. Pay attention to that. We'll talk about what that means later on. It doesn't mean that you have to do it for the rest of your life. I would say the research says that people change careers, drastically change careers, an average of about 3 or 4 times in their entire lifetime. So that means if you start off like me, you want to be a counselor after graduation, 5, 6, 7 years later, you change up and you become an accountant. Yeah, you might have to get different kind of education and whatnot, but people are doing this all the time. So this is very, very different than what it was a long, long, long time ago in the days of my father, where he went to school and he went for business, and he stayed in business for 45 years, and that was it. That's how it was back then. Nowadays, things are changing so rapidly. There's so many different types of jobs that are coming out, so many different things that you can be doing, so many different ways that you can be expressing who you are in your careers, that you get this opportunity now that a lot of people don't, where you can change up and kind of go after what your passions are all about. So identifying your career goals, this is about you. It's about you at this stage. It's not about finding a job. It's just about learning what is it that makes you tick. What do you like to do? What do you hate to do? How many of you know what you hate to do? And don't say get up on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. If you know what you hate to do, that's a really good thing to know. That's an awesome thing to know. It sounds very negative when you say, gosh, I hate doing this, or I don't like this, or I don't want to do this anymore, and you kind of want to hide that. It's okay not to like something. Write those down. Because a simple thing that I do with my students when they come to UNCG is I'll whip out all the list of all the undergraduate majors that we have, and I'll put it right in front of them, and I'll say, cross out all those majors or those types of majors, man, you just hate them. You don't want to do that whatsoever. You don't even want to think about it. Narrow those down. It creates a better list of majors that are actually available for you. So for me, when I went into college, I knew I didn't want to be a nurse. I knew I didn't want to be a doctor. I knew I didn't want to be in healthcare because I didn't like blood. If I see blood, I will pass out. And it doesn't matter that my parents said, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a doctor. They said, you have to be a doctor. It's like, fine, great, yeah, medicine. But what's going to happen if I fall over because I don't like blood? And if I'm falling over not liking blood, plus all my science classes were really boring to me. They were horrible. I didn't want to learn about what plants do and all kinds of stuff. It doesn't do anything for me. So those are the things that I actually did not like, and I need to make sure that I put those over here. Because if I'm getting into those passionate areas, those areas that I like, I'm more likely to have an area or success in my career. So this is what we're trying to find. It's what I call the sweet spot. The sweet spot is the area in which all of these different areas, or all these different sections, if you will, kind of match up, blend together. So the first thing that you're going to want to figure out here is, what do you value? What do you really like? What are these values that you have? So how many of you like money? Okay, she loves money right here. So we have your career. It's going to be accounting. If you love money, that's a work value. It's okay to love money. So if you love money and you really value a high-paying job, a really high-paying job, what might you not consider, generally speaking? Teacher. Okay. Sure. What else? Social work. Yeah, because generally speaking, we start to hear that these kind of types of job titles have lower pay. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't value teachers. It means that we don't value social workers. It just means that if a high-paying salary is one of your values, then that's something to pay attention to, because that helps narrow down the types of careers that are out there. Now, how many of you value working 80 to 100 hours a week in your job? Ooh. How many of you value work-life balance? Meaning, you know what, I'd like to work my 30 to 40 hours a week, but also have a life and go on weekends and do stuff and whatnot. That's work-life balance. So now, if we value a high-paying job, I want to make $100,000 a year, a lot of times that's where students stop and they say, oh, that means I'm going to be an investment banker. I'm going to go up north and manage stocks and all that kind of stuff. But then they find out that they have to work 80 to 100 hours a week. And if they have to do that, now we have a problem, because now the values are actually not matching very well. And so when I worked at a business school up at Hopkins, we had business students all the time coming in there saying, I want to be an investment banker. And when I started talking about it, I said, they make a lot of money, you're going to go up there. And then what we start to find out is within the first year on the job, they graduate and become an investment banker. Within the first year, 65% of them quit their jobs and say, no way whatsoever. Because they didn't remember the other types of aspects of what that career is all about. And it didn't match with them. They found that they were making $120,000, $130,000 a year. That's a lot of money. They were able to buy the Mercedes that they wanted, but they were never able to drive it. They didn't have time. They didn't have time to have a family, to be able to go out with their friends who had more of that work-life balance. So when you're thinking about these careers, it's not just about a one-dimensional aspect. It's understanding what are the most important aspects, the values that I have, and what are the values that these careers actually bring in as well, and how do they match. The other thing that you're going to want to start doing is, what are you interested in? How many of you know exactly what you're interested in? This is kind of typical. A lot of times when I say, what do you like to do? Sometimes students just stare at me like, I don't know, stuff. Not school, but stuff. What do you like to do? What do you find yourself doing all week? If you had in the perfect world and you could do whatever you want, what would that look like? Even if it's just, I like walking on the beach. Cool. Maybe it's, I just love reading. Maybe it is, I love hanging out with friends. All of these interests, you need to start writing them down. Because all of them become aspects of majors, become aspects of jobs, become aspects of careers. And there's this guy here named Holland, and what he gives us, and all career centers use this particular type of theory. It's a really cool theory. So back in the day, I would say about 100 years ago or so, this guy, he started measuring everybody's careers and how much they actually liked their career. So he said, okay, here's a survey. I want you to tell me what you do for a living. What is your career? What is your job? And he asked them, do you like doing it? And then he kind of surveyed them on a few other things. So now he was able to get a list of all these careers and all these people that liked him, and he was able to create personality sets. And from there, he was able to create assessments and whatnot to give to all of us and say, okay, take this assessment. I'm going to figure out what your personality is all like. And then I'm going to give you all these different career choices that are based on that personality. Now, he doesn't say that if you have this kind of personality, you're going to be good at these different types of jobs. The only thing he's going to say to you is, all of these people that do these jobs love what they do. And they share a similar personality to what you have. So if they love what they're doing, and they have a similar personality to you, chances are you might love what they do as well. So you might want to go research that. So they never says that you should be this. And that's a myth. That's a huge myth that people have, is that there's a test out there that's going to tell me what I should be when I grow up. If there was, I think I'd be out of business, which is kind of cool, so I'm glad there isn't. So when you're thinking about, what is I'm passionate about, these interests will help you do those types of things. Now, skill sets, how many know what you're skilled at? You're really good at? Yeah, skills now. Skills are those things that say, I'm able to do math, or I love numbers, or I'm really good at running a mile, or I'm really good at talking with people, or I'm really good at understanding what their problems are. These skills will become the things now that you get a sense of what you find that you're really, really good at. What can you do amazingly? What are you expert at? But don't stop there. Because after you write down the list of what I'm really, really good at, ask yourself, how much do I actually like doing each skill? It doesn't matter that you're really good at math. If you don't really like doing it, you're not going to be happy in your career. You're not going to be happy in your job. At some point, you're going to burn out a lot quicker than what you might for those things that you actually like to do. So what does this mean? It means that if you actually like to do these types of skills, you really like to do them, and you find a career that has a lot of those skills infused in there, chances are you're going to be a lot more happy. And there's actually research now that says happier people actually get paid more. Happier people actually progress in their careers a lot faster than those who are not happy. Sounds weird, doesn't it? This is this whole thing, a whole research area, and you can Google this later, called positive psychology. It's really, really interesting because what these people say is that if you are really, truly, not just putting a fake smile on your face, my wife does in her job. Oh yeah, I love it here. If you are truly, truly happy and positive about your job, you will get paid more money over time. You will get better jobs. You will progress a lot faster. Why is that? Simple fact, human nature. People that smile more get promoted more, right? You want to be around happier people, right? If you ever had that friend or that coworker or that person that you're next to in your class and they're just grumpy all the time, what do? You kind of move your desk over, move a little bit more, maybe you sit in the back of the room, far, far away from that person, because that's an infectious type of thing. And same with the smiles and all that kind of stuff. It's an infectious type of thing. So you can now, if you're looking at your passions, what you like to do, what makes you smile, and connecting that with different majors and careers, it's going to pay off in the end. So this is what we call changing the lens, changing how you think about things. It's not just about how do I get out of college quicker, it's how am I going to connect myself with those studies and actually get in there. And that's what we call flow. So earlier in this presentation, when I asked you, have you ever done those things where this makes time go very, very fast? Like all of a sudden, you look up and 4 hours have passed and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that time has gone that fast. That's what this dude, I'm never going to try to pronounce his name, says is flow. The perfect meeting point between skill level and challenge. If you can find that perfect spot, that sweet spot, that flow, that sometimes cannot figure this stuff out. Figure out what is that flow spot for them. What are those times when time just goes really, really quick, and then reflect on it, on why did it go so quick? Why did it go so quick? Was I doing something that I really loved? Or was it something that was just really interested me? Or something that matched with my values? What are those things that made time go by? And that's what a career counselor at a college campus will do, is help you understand when you're thinking about those things, how do we get it into some semblance of order? How do we get it in order so that we can actually project it to different types of careers or majors or classes to study, however you want to look at it. So when you're thinking about learning what's out there, there are two approaches that most people go. One is they figure out who they are, my skills, my interests, my values, all these great things. Once they figure out a solid sense of who this guy is right here, then they start to match it with different majors and careers. That's one way. The other way is when you go out there and you start learning about different types of careers and jobs and things that sound really cool. Now you start working your way backwards and say, what do I need to study? How do I need to prepare myself from college to get to that point in time? Both ways are perfect. And both ways have great resources that you should be looking at. The first one is College Foundation of North Carolina. How many of you have not heard of that? Cool. This is your top resource that you need to know. They have a lot of mini assessments on there that will kind of help you understand about your values and your skills and your interests and kind of put them into some kind of order for you. The other things here is the Occupational Outlook Handbook. And if you Google OOH, it'll come up like the second link, I think. Fantastic. One that is better than that is the ONET. And I think there's like an online resource that's going to have all these PowerPoints, right? Mm-hmm. So you can find this one later on. But the ONET, Google that one, is fantastic. It's going to talk to you about different careers and working your way backwards to the different majors that exist that will help get you there. And it's got its own assessments and whatnot that you can look at. And of course, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it's okay. I put it on there for a reason because the government likes to track different careers and jobs. But here's the problem that they have. Here's the problem that the government has. One of the problems. That was a joke. Thank you very much for smiling. One of the many problems. They're usually behind the times. These little statistics, they sound really cool, but they're usually about 2 to 3 years behind. I like to put it on there because it helps you see historical trends. But I'm going to tell you that the ONET and the OOH will have more up-to-date information on what these career paths are all about. So I'll give you an example. I think the government still doesn't list web developer or something like that as one of their jobs, and it's one of the biggest jobs that we have these days, so it's very strange where the government's mind is. But that's what you're going to want to use this information for, because it's going to be the kind of stuff that you're going to read to understand so that you can start to look at different majors at UNCG, because everybody wants to come to UNCG. I'm just kidding, that was an infomercial, so I'll move on. But another thing that you can do to help you learn is through active strategies. Start talking to people. How many of you love to talk? Yeah, talking's really cool, right? I can't stand, how many of you like to text? Or Facebook? You Facebook it? Is that what you guys do, Facebook it now? Texting. I heard, when we survey our students, just get off topic a little bit, we ask them, how do you want to be communicated to? And they say, don't call me anymore. Okay, good, because I don't like the phone again. And don't email me. I don't know what else is left. So I'm thinking like the mind-to-mind thing. I do say text me, but if you text me, I may not read it. So I'm just going to say, students, you all are weird. But anyway, network and talk to people. What do your parents do? What do your family members do? What do your friends do? What do your neighbors do? Go ask them. Ask them that question that I asked Jessica, my good friend. What do you do? What do you want to be when you grow up? How did you get there? Learn from them, because that's where you're going to get the real information. Because what college, and I'm glad, there's no faculty in this room, right? Good. So here's a little secret as well. So when faculty in college, they teach you all kinds of great stuff. They have magical books and you can learn a lot of knowledge. But guess what? What they're presenting to you, in my humble opinion, is the ideal. The ideal, the great information, the knowledge, the expertise. The real world, by talking to people, getting out there and experiencing part-time jobs, on-campus jobs, internships, whatever it is, that's going to be where you find what it's really like. And so I'll give you an example of that. So the School of Education at UNCG, and this happened at Hopkins as well, at East Carolina where I used to work as well. In the junior year, we would see a good number of students all of a sudden flooding our office from the School of Education saying, oh my gosh, I'm ready to change my major, I think I want to do something else with my career, and help in their junior year. What do you think happens in their junior year that all of a sudden we see a huge number of these students come into our office? What's going on in their junior year, do you think?
Student teaching.
Student teaching. Yeah, who said that? Are you a teacher?
Nope.
Okay, good. So student teaching. This is the time in their particular major, their academic major, where the School of Education kicks them out into the schools where they actually get to teach you all and see what it's like and do what teachers actually do, the practice aspect of their career. And they get in there after they've got that ideal, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm confident. Then they start working with students, no offense students, and they say, oh crap, oh boy, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And so it's a very strange thing. So what that means to us is that if you have ideas of what you want to do, go experience it, go do it, go talk to people, understand what it's really like to confirm that this is what I want to do. If you find out, and I tell my student teachers all the time, that you don't want to teach in K through 12. So you got into that particular environment and you're like, oh crap, I don't want to do this ever again, but you love teaching, well guess what? Here's 100 other types of careers that you can still teach, but not in that particular environment. So never, never worry. If you really are passionate and you love things and you're skilled at things and that's not the right environment, there's 100 other environments out there for you. It's just our job to try to find them so that you can experience those as well. And that's what I'm trying to say is don't worry. Don't worry at all. You have time. Take your time to actually learn about what it is and make the right type of decision. So when I put this type of thing up here, so at Hopkins, what we used to do with our students to help them decide is we would actually hook them up to a machine. And when we hook them up to a machine, they magically do have these different thoughts. And we tried the shock therapy. Parents tended to get a little upset with us. I don't know why. I mean, how many of you didn't want to shock your students every now and then? But instead, what we showed them is a process. And look at this process right here. This is horrible, isn't it? This is a clinical way to make a decision. But man, it looks like a lot of work, right? It takes a long time to make an educated, informed decision. Simplify it. And so an activity, if I ever had time to do this, that I take students through is, how do you make a decision if I needed to buy a car? Help me buy a car. Help me buy a TV. Or help me buy a computer. Think through to yourself, how would you make those kinds of decisions? And then ramp it up when you're looking at your majors and your careers. Because when you're trying to buy a car, what are you looking for? Because when you start to say, well, I'm looking for a red car. I'm looking for one that has 4 wheels instead of 3 wheels. There are cars out there that have 3 wheels. I want one that's electric versus this because I want to save the environment. All of those become those values and those things that are important to you, and you use the same mentality when you're thinking about different careers. So when I say change the lens, you change from I have to do something to I need to. It didn't show up. Because if you say that I have to study, you're already putting in the negative aspect of it. If you say that I want to be this type of career, so a consulting career. I want to be a consultant. That's what I'm passionate about being. I don't know why my thinking just turning out like that. It must be my hand. If I want to be a consultant, that means that you actually want to get an internship in that particular type of career. If you want to get an internship in there, then you have to have a high GPA. If you want to get a high GPA, that means you have to get an A in this class. Thinking backwards on, if I really want to do this thing, here's what it's going to take. And if you're not willing to do that type of stuff, then you may not make it. And so that's why you want to change your lens when you're actually in college and not think about it as a burden, but something that you really want to do. Because if you can get through it quick, you're going to get to the stuff that you really, really love. And I think every parent in here can attest to that. If you just get over this little hump, you're going to get to where you want. Now, taking all this decision making and learning about yourself, I'm going to throw a little factor in there that I like to call luck. And this is a scary thing for people because it's too much chance, it's too much abstractness that's out there. But a lot of times, we will choose our careers or our paths just by some random thing that happened. And we think that because it's random, it's not actual. Well, guess what? It's okay too. Because when you have this process and you're learning about yourself, that's a great thing. But you also want to pay attention to the what-if scenario. The what if I met this one person that's doing this one career that's, oh my gosh, I never even thought of that before in my life. Carrie Underwood with, what? American Idol. She was the American Idol one, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's chance. She stood in line, did all this kind of stuff, but that's chance. What's up in a situation where chance is more likely going to happen. So she made the decision to go to the stand in line for the Idol auditions versus, no, it's too much work, I don't even want to do it. She took the chance. She put herself into an environment where she was actually creating opportunity for herself that she never even thought of that could happen. And that's what you want to do for yourself as well, is don't just stick your nose in the books and study. Go experience student clubs. Go experience a part-time job. Go experience networking events or meeting with alumni, because you never know what you're going to learn. You never know when somebody's going to say, oh my gosh, you have something that we're looking for, why don't you come work for us? When I was up in D.C., I was talking with this young lady who went to East Carolina, and I said, oh my God, how did you get to D.C.? In D.C., not a lot of people have heard of East Carolina University, so I was like, wow, I'm drawn to you, because you're East Carolina, I'm East Carolina. How did you get here? She says, well, my boyfriend lives up here, and I was flying up here to visit him, and I was sitting next to this gentleman on the plane, and I was getting ready to graduate, and we just started talking. Because that's what we do on airplanes, right? Either the chatterbox right next to you, or the person who's like this, don't even look at me, because I'm not talking at all, whatsoever. This person started talking with her. And it just so happened that she did go to her career center and talked about that luck factor. And what do you do when people start talking to you? You introduce yourself. Here's who I am, like Jessica did. Here's what I'm about. And that created conversation. And it led to the point of, oh, you love marketing. You love that creative stuff. Guess what? I have this position that's open right now. We would love for you to apply. Just from sitting on a plane to visit her boyfriend in D.C., did she have this conversation? She put herself in that situation. She had an interview. She got the job. And now she was up in D.C. because of those types of random acts. You want to create them for yourselves, but you also want to be ready for when they happen. That way you're not stuck with the, oh, I don't know. Learning about yourself will make you ready for that type of environment, that type of luck. So what are you going to do? Every university, every college, no matter where you go for your next step in your education, will have these types of things. The first one is what we like to call the what can I do with a major in types of sheets or resources. Go ask your academic advisors for these. Ask the admissions people, do you have these? Who has them? Can I look at them before I decide to go to your university? Ask them. You are a consumer. Ask them what do they have around that. Because that way they can give you a starting point. It's not going to be all comprehensive because we have millions of different job types. But it gives you a starting point of where do their alumni go? What do their people do? What are they all about at that university versus this college? Meet with the career people. So what I have found in my years is that with admissions officers, a lot of times they're not very connected. This is a pet peeve of mine, not very connected with their career office. When you go to a campus and you visit, they don't walk you by the career center. Pay attention if you go on college visits and whatnot. See if they take you around the college, the career services center, and see if they stop there and you have a conversation with them. That's an important thing. What do they do for you? Is it a career center that just says, come to us in your junior year, we'll look at your resume and we have part-time jobs? Or is it more of, it's a developmental process? Here's what you should be doing in this year versus this year versus this year. Here's all the different experiences that we have. And oh, by the way, we also do have jobs, resumes, and interview skills. That's a different type of lens of what you want to look at. And that's what we have at UNCG. Again, another micro commercial for you. But a lot of good universities have those types of things. Career Resource Library. People still read books. I'm amazed. I know we have ebooks these days, and people like to text their books and whatnot, but we have a lot of different resources as college campuses and university campuses where you can walk in and start learning more about what a psychology degree is all about and all the different types of areas that you can go into. I talked to you about the Occupational Outlook and also the ONET. Those are what every type of university has so that you can claim success in college. Use your career center. That's the last thing that I want to say is use your career center no matter where you decide to go. UNCG, no matter where you decide to go. Not Chapel Hill. They're bad. Only because I went to NC State, so go Wolfpack. Because they will help you through this process. For my parents, whenever I do orientations and the parents and the students come to during the summer campuses, I get to speak to parents. And the biggest thing that I tell them is, it's my job to make sure that your student doesn't come home to sit on your couch, to eat your food, to watch your TV, to take your car. My job is to get them their own life, their own couch, their own TV, their own food, and all that kind of stuff. Because that's what university systems are all about. That's why you're looking at college as your next step, because that's what's needed. And there is a lot of noise these days as the building starts to fall apart. There's a lot of noise today about what is the value of college, and maybe you shouldn't go to college, and you see those different things. Guess what? They've been saying that for 20, 30, 40 years. I'll say that trending-wise, more education is always good, as long as you're doing something with it. Don't just get a degree because it sounds really cool. Have a purpose for it. Use your time wisely, and you'll do very, very well in college. So I ended a little bit early because I want to make sure I can answer any kind of questions, comments, concerns, or anything at all about college, career centers,